Good evening, everyone. Welcome to the July 1st virtual meeting of the Hyde Park Planning Board. A reminder, this meeting is being conducted as authorized by Executive Order 202.38 by Governor Andrew Cuomo of the state of New York. I'm going to call on each board member to confirm that you're alone or not under any duress to make a decision that would be somehow not yours. Ms. Weiser?
I'm alone.
Mr. Oliver?
I am alone.
Ms. Wasser?
I'm alone.
Mr. Pickett?
I am alone.
And Vice Chair Dexter.
I am alone.
Please join me from home as we say the American pledge, as we pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Before we begin our meeting, I just want to point out to everyone, congratulations to the residents of Dutchess County. We are now in another phase. And just a reminder, our restaurants are now open, most of them serving outdoors. So please take a moment to go out and consider patronizing them because they had a real suffering during the COVID crisis. The first item on the agenda is due public hearing for PLT Storage Yard Reconstruction. The applicants are seeking site plan amendment and a special use permit approval to reconstruct a building located at 501-503 Salt Point Turnpike. They're also constructing a new, smaller building where activities will occur while the major building is constructed. I believe we have, nope, not Mr. Turner and Mr. Hutchins. We should be having Ms. Zerfas and I believe Mr. Gleason in from the waiting room.
Nope.
Nope, not Mr. Andros, Ms. Zerfas, Mr. Gleason. There we are. Thank you. Michelle, you'll need to unmute. And there's Mr. Gleason. Good to see you both. Mr. Gleason, there you go. You'll need to unmute Mr. Gleason. Lower left corner of your screen. There you go.
How's that?
Welcome. There you go.
Okay.
Michelle, I'm going to turn it over to you for your presentation.
Okay, are you guys going to show this PowerPoint or did you want me to show it?
Who, me?
No.
No. Mr. Krupnik, our director. Making a motion to open the public hearing from Mr. Oliver.
So moved.
Second, and Dexter?
I bet, Cynthia, you better call the roll because we can't see everybody.
Okay. Ms. Weiser? Okay, she's indicating aye. Ms. Wasser?
Yes.
Mr. Pickett?
Yes.
Mr. Oliver?
Yes.
Vice Chair Dexter?
Yes.
And Chairman Dupree?
Yes.
Okay.
Bill, are you ready for the slides?
I'm ready.
Tell us when to go and we'll go.
Okay, go ahead and go to slide 3. This one. Go back one. Okay, this project, as you know, was originally had a conditional approval last fall or last summer. And we made some changes. First change is the offsite storage area that's being removed. The proposed trees, which is the second change, which is on the left-hand side, those are being shifted onto the property. The fuel tanks, we originally showed them as option A. There may be new tanks put in as option A, but when the building comes down, when the center building is demolished, if they aren't ready for the new fuel tanks. They may just move the old fuel tanks onto the building pad. That'll put it 100 feet from the property line. And then the fourth change since the last approval was the adding a bathroom to the new building 3. So if you just want to go to the next slide. Okay, this shows the difference in the plans between having the off-site storage area with the off-site storage area removed. Next slide. This shows how the trees have been moved from off of the property onto the property. These are the screening trees. Next slide. These are the 2 stored possible fuel tank areas. A was what was previously approved. B would be an interim storage tank area. Well, there's no, between the time of the demolition of the fire damaged building and before the new building is placed on this site. The new replacement building will be the same size as what was previously approved and what's out there now, plus doesn't show up this row in the upper north corner. There'll be the bump out's going to be squared off. Next slide. Okay, there'll be a bathroom added to, this is the new building 3 that was approved last time. This is the maintenance workshop building. Right now, the bathroom is in the building that's going to be demolished. So they're adding a bathroom here. The red line will be the new sewer line. This is going to just basically take the waste from that building and send it to the existing field. There will be no change in the field. We're just tying into the existing septic tank down there at the end. The second one that says expansion, that expansion isn't really expansion, it's a replacement area. It's just the local health department's name for the replacement area. And then the blue line is the water line coming off of the existing water to service the new building. The next slide. And that just shows you where the revisions are. So, Michael, back to you. Mr. Chairman Dupree, back to you.
Thank you. I'd like to point out for anyone watching that this proposal has been discussed extensively in workshop. We did refer it to the Department of Health. It's important to note that the fire damaged building did have a bathroom in it, so this is merely a replacement bathroom in the new building. And we've had correspondence from the Department of Health indicating they're okay. We also had correspondence from Dutchess County Planning, which called it a matter of local concern. They had no issues with changes. And I'll make the last comment that overall, this means that there'll be slightly less disturbance. They won't be going off-site onto other people's properties to do storage or for plantings. So generally speaking, the board has been very receptive to the proposal. Let me start with our consultants. Ms. Axelson, do you have any additional comments? We're not hearing you. You're on mute.
Okay,
Liz?
hang on.
There you go.
Thank you. No, I think Pete has been in consultation with the applicant's folks and Michelle, and I don't have any comments.
Thank you. Ms. Polidoro?
No comments.
And any comments from the board?
Nope.
Were there any members of the public who signed up to make comments for this application? If so, we can admit them from the waiting room.
There were none.
Thank you. I take it not. So there being no other comment, making a motion to close the public hearing from Ms. Dexter.
And to leave it
I'd like to
open.
make a motion to close the public hearing for PLP Storage Yard with the exception of written comments for 10 days.
Thank you, Ann.
I'll get a second on that. Chris Oliver.
And can we all say aye and raise our hands at the same time? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Abstains or nays? There being none, the motion carries unanimously. Let's put this on the agenda for July 15th. We can consider approval on that date. Thank you, Michelle and Pat. It's good to see you guys. Stay safe.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. The next item on the next agenda item is a continued public hearing for HUTCHINS Staatsburg Storage. This is for the location of additional units located at 4920 Albany Post Road, where there's already a storage facility. We welcome Mr. Turner and Mr. Hutchins in for the evening.
I move to reopen the public hearing for Hutchins Storage additional units.
Thank you.
I'll second the motion. Brent Pickett.
Thank you. All in favor, say aye and raise your hand.
Aye.
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 Carries unanimously. Mr. Turner, you're on mute at the moment. Do you want to walk us through the final changes that you presented since the last meeting?
Yes, I can. I know we have a PowerPoint presentation.
It'll take Councilman Krupnik. There we go.
There we go. Okay, if you go to the second page. There we go. On this, you can see the most significant change that we did was moving building building number 5 as far back as we could, because as per the conversations that we've had, we found that when we did shift the building back to like 10 feet or something, then we found, oh, there's some additional space there. So we actually, took advantage of that, which moved the building back. And so now the west elevation of the building pretty much aligns with the larger mass of building number 1. And with that, we're able to keep some landscaping in the front, and that is being used to screen the parking from Route 9. So if you go to page 2, sorry, the next one, next slide. This is a close-up of what the final result is. You can see that we shifted the building back from 53.6 feet to 63.57 feet. And that it keeps the existing landscaping bed in place, and we're using that for screening. It does keep the west elevation visible, which was a critical item for Scott Hutchins. And then there was a comment that Liz had made about a gate at this location, but there is no gate for this parking lot, because this lot is to be used by any type of business uses that would occupy the front portion of building number 1. Next slide. There really hasn't been any changes here. You can see the change of building number 5. We're using the existing rock outcropping that splits the site to basically screen the entire eastern portion of the development, which would be buildings 7, 8, 9, 10, and 11 from Route 9. And also, we're still able to maintain the existing rock walls to the greatest extent possible that are currently on that side of the property. Next slide, please. With this slide, again, there's not substantial change on this, except that I did add some signage on the eastern face of the buildings that would be indicating short-term parking only. I did that on those sides only and not between the buildings because that's a vehicular access drive, and so you really don't want cars sitting in those locations for a long period of time. Also, we did clearly identify the locations of the emergency only egress signs that lead out onto South Cross Road. So that was an additional change. Next slide, please. With this slide, there was a request regarding adding onto the zoning table the setback for the shed, and so that line has been added, and the 22.3 feet has been indicated on our site plan. It's on the civil drawings as well, showing the corner of the shed off the property line. Next slide. At this location, it was just really identifying the proposed area of disturbance, the proposed temporary turtle barrier that is around these two buildings. Also throughout the entire civil plans, we did provide setbacks from most of the corners of the buildings to the property line, so you can pretty much see where they are in relationship to the property. Again, at this location too, we're providing the short-term parking only signs on the east face of these buildings as well. Next slide. With this one, there was a request to add the existing light fixture schedule, so that's added in the center of the page on the left side. It just provides you with the quantities of each of the respective fixtures. I believe that's fixtures A and B. Next slide. With this, as indicated, the shift in the building number 5 is, and the parking lot allowed us to keep that planting area that currently is there. We identified the plants as being existing as per the most recent letter we received from Liz Axelson. She's requesting to actually know what varieties or types of plants they are, so we'll be going back out and picking that up before we do a final submission. Also with this one, if you look at the overall site plan on the right-hand side, I did also add the existing plantings that are on the adjoining property, just so you have a better idea of what is occurring as you go up and down Route 9 and what you would be seeing. When those things finally do get pretty full, they will be doing a little bit more screening of building number 5. And I'm hoping they're not going to screen from view the west elevation too much, but I know I can't rely on those as being a screening element because in time those could die and we don't have any control of whether those get planted or not. Next slide, please. In regards to this one, there was a comment regarding the existing plants in the existing bioretention basin. That basin had been seeded with a New England wetland seed mixture, and that can be seen in the table that's on the right-hand side of this sheet. And so that gives you the idea of the variety of plants that were included with that mix that should be growing in that basin at this point in time. Next sheet, please. This just is, again, shows a maneuvering plan. There has been no real change to this, even with the shift in building number 5. Next sheet, please. This again, I included this one because it does have the landscaping for the wetland buffer area, and that was made reference several times throughout Liz's document that we needed to refer back to that. So I just wanted to include this sheet as well. And then the last one, it just pretty much sums up the comments that had come in from Liz Axelson in her memo dated June 26th. And the 2 items that really we needed to pick up was there was a typo on sheet DT 102, I should say, was on sheet PZ 102 in regards to referring to DT 102, and we'll pick that up, and also about labeling the trees. And that pretty much sums up all the changes that we picked up.
Thank you, Mr. Turner. You did an excellent job as always. I want to compliment again your client, Mr. Hutchins, for doing a magnificent job of maintaining that property and being so agreeable to the request to further push the building 5 back. Also, just a quick note that it's important for the board to remember that screening is not required between non-residential use to a non-residential use. That's what this represents. The screening that Mr. Turner was referring to are actually some plantings that were meant to soften, as you know, the veterinary that is next door. Let me start with our consultants and staff. Ms. Moss, comments? Okay. Ms. Axelson?
Well, Scott and Mark Graminsky did such a great job revising the plans. It was so thoroughly done. I have very few comments remaining. And then Rob and I communicated a little bit about some refinements. So anything that remains in my comments, or 4 comments, could be conditions of approval. And again, it was nice to see the board, really jump in and work with Scott on figuring out planting and pushing the building back. That's it.
Thank you. Ms. Polidoro, any comments?
No.
Let me start from my virtual left. Ms. Weiser, any comments?
No, I have no comments.
Mr. Pickett?
No comments.
Ms. Wasser?
Well, I will take the opportunity to personally thank Scott once more for, I think it's a much better project than when it was filed all around, and I appreciate your responsiveness.
Thank you.
Vice Chair Dexter?
I would echo my colleagues' comments completely and looking forward to the new expansion.
Mr. Oliver?
Again, just echoing my colleagues, and thank you very much for moving forward with the project and, working with us to make all the changes that you did. Thank you.
Yes, it's important that planning boards remember that this is an important time to welcome investment because not a lot of people are investing in communities right now. It's a lot of uncertainty. So we're very proud that Mr. Hutchins chose to expand his project here in Hyde Park. I don't believe anyone signed up in advance to make public comment on this application, but if there are any in the waiting room, now's the time to come in.
There are no one in the waiting room. There's no one. Go ahead.
Thank you. There being none, may I get a motion from Mr. Pickett to close the public hearing with the proviso that written comments may be submitted for 10 days.
Yes, motion so made.
Second, Stephanie Wasser.
Thank you. Can everyone, if you're going to say aye, raise your hand and say aye. All in favor?
Aye.
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 Got it. Thank you. Then we'll put this on the agenda for July 15th to consider conditional approval with the minor comments that Liz has left. Anything else, gentlemen?
Just want to take the opportunity to say thank you. And Michael, I think you know what I'm going through in some other areas of our county, and it's been an absolute pleasure. As always, you people work very well with us. I enjoy the process. It's lengthy, it's long, but it's to the book, and I appreciate that. So thank you very much.
Thank you, as always. And Mr. Turner, thanks again for turning on a dime and getting this out quickly to us so we could hold this public hearing tonight.
No problem. Thank you very much for your.
So we'll see you back on July 15th, and when we have the resolutions ready, we'll circulate them in advance to you.
Oh, that'd be great. Thank you.
Thank you. Good night.
Good night.
The next item on the agenda, do we have Mr. Olson present? That would be the time to let him in. This is Verizon cell tower to be located on the Anderson Center for Autism. We held a public hearing at our last meeting and closed it with the exception for 10 days for written comment. No written comment came in. So there's Mr. Olson. Mr. Olson, do you want to say anything before we take the resolution and move it?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. No, I don't think I have anything to say. That's a very unique situation.
I can joke and say for an attorney, yes, that's true, but that's not necessarily the case. So I believe this resolution will be offered by Ms. Weiser.
Yes. Resolution to grant site plan and special use permit approval of Verizon Cell Tower Anderson, Staatsburg, South Micro, July 1st, 2020, resolution number 2019-37B. Whereas, now therefore be it resolved that pursuant to section 108-9.4C1 of the zoning law, the planning board hereby waives the requirement of a certified boundary description of the property. Be it further resolved that the planning board hereby makes the following findings pursuant to section 108-8.4 of the zoning law. 1, the project will not result in any excessive off-premises noise, dust, odors, solid waste, or glare, or create any public or private nuisances. The project involves the installation of telecommunications equipment on a wooden pole similar to those used for telephone and electrical equipment throughout the town. The facility will not have lighting or a backup generator. 2, the project will not cause significant traffic congestion, impair pedestrian safety, or overload existing roads. The facility will be unmanned and after construction will generate only 1 to 3 additional vehicle trips per year for routine maintenance. 3, the project is suitable given the property's size, location, topography, vegetation, soils, natural habitat, hydrology, hydrogeology, and its ability to be screened from neighboring properties and public roads. The project proposes a low-height wooden pole which limits the visual impacts of the project. 4, the project will be subject to such conditions on operation design, and layout of these structures, and provision of buffer areas as may be necessary to ensure compatibility with surrounding uses and to protect the natural, historic, and scenic resources of the town. The proposed tower will not be visible from sensitive visual receptors outside the property upon which the facility is proposed to be located. Where am I? Oh, here we are. Right. Be it further resolved that the planning board hereby grants site plan approval and special use permit to the project as shown on the site plan set and authorizes the chair of his authorized designee to sign the site plan set after compliance with the following conditions. 1, payment of all fees in escrow. 2, approval by the attorney to the planning board of an agreement committing the owner of the telecommunications tower and its successors in interest to negotiate in good faith for shared use. 3, approval by the town attorney to, my internet connection's unstable. Approval by the town, approval by the town attorney of an access easement to the town, providing access for inspections and decommissioning. Such easement can be incorporated into the removal agreement required by section 101-17 of the town code. 4, approval by the town attorney of the communications facilities removal agreement required by section 101-17 of the town code. The removal agreement shall be executed by both the applicant and landowner. 5, filing with the town clerk evidence of liability insurance in accordance with section 101-20 of the town code. 6, revision of the site plan set to include the field survey prepared by Tectonic Engineering referenced on sheets SB-A, C-1, and R-1.
Second, Chris Oliver.
Any further discussion by the board or consultants? All in favor, please indicate by yes, Ms. Axelson.
I missed when Neil was scrolling through the resolution, the waivers in there, correct?
Yes.
Yes.
Great. Oh.
Any further discussion? All in favor, please indicate by raising your hand and saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Motion carries unanimously. Congratulations, Mr. Olson.
Great, thank you. It's been a pleasure. I appreciate the time that the board and its consultants have put into this.
Thank you very much. It's good to see you. Stay safe.
Thank you, you too. Good night.
Night.
Next item on the agenda is similar Riverview re-subdivision in the Landings District. We held a public hearing at the last meeting and closed it with the proviso that 10 days were allowed for written comment. We received no additional written comment other than the one that was submitted and read into the record at the last public hearing. So, negative a motion, I believe, let me rephrase that. I believe Vice Chair Dex will be introducing this resolution.
That is correct. Resolution to approve a minor subdivision plot, Riverview subdivision, resolution number 2017-11C. Whereas, now therefore be it resolved that the planning board hereby finds that a proper case exists for requiring parks or recreation land to be suitably located on the plat, but that such land cannot be properly located within the plat, and hereby requires a payment of a recreation fee to the Recreation Trust Fund in lieu of such park and recreation land for each new lot before filing the final plat. Be it further resolved that the planning board hereby conditionally approves the subdivision plat and authorizes the chairperson or his authorized designee to sign the subdivision plat after compliance with the following conditions. 1, payment of all fees in escrow, including the recreation fee for one new lot. 2, approval by the planning board attorney of a declaration of utility easement over lot 1. 3, Department of Behavioral and Community Health permission to file. 4, revision of the subdivision plot to include the following note. The owner of Lot 1A shall consult with the New York State Office of Parks, Recreation, and Historic Preservation prior to any disturbance on Lot 1A. 5, revision of the bulk regulation summary table so that Lot 1A's principal rear building setback is 14 feet. Be it further resolved that prior to the zoning administrator authorizing issuance of any building permit for Lot 1A, evidence of recordation of the approved utility easement with the Dutchess County Clerk shall be provided.
Seconded by Brent Pickett.
Thank you. Any further discussion? There being none, all those in favor, please raise your hand and say aye.
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 There are no abstentions or nays, so the motion carries unanimously. Congratulations, Mr. Andros. You're on mute.
I'm going to unmute. Okay. I had a couple of comments on the resolution. I guess it's too late to do that now.
I'm sorry. I thought I should have asked you if you had comments. You were sent this afternoon, but you didn't respond back. You didn't respond back to us?
No, because I didn't receive it and print it out and look at it until maybe around 4:30, 4:45 when I came back to the office.
Want to give us your comments now?
I can go through them.
Right ahead.
Okay. Well, my first comment is with regard to one of the whereases. It's the one that starts pursuant to section 277 of town law. Everybody see that one? I think that's the next page.
It's the 8th whereas down.
There it is, right there, up at the top. I don't think, and this is entirely just technical, that section 277 of the town law should be there, because that specifically speaks to lots created that have residential uses on them. And of course, this subdivision doesn't have any proposed use. So I think that really should come off. And if you go down to the second line, you'll see over toward the right, containing residential units, that ought to come off. However, section 96-8 of the town code does allow you to do the park thing and to collect a recreation fee. So that's fine. I don't have any problem with that. I just think that the 277 of the town law really doesn't apply to this particular subdivision. It's up to you what you do with it. Moving right along to the conditions, payment of all fees and escrow, that's not a problem. Approval by the planning board attorney of a declaration of utility easement over lot 1. I don't think that the town's involved in that at all. I don't know where that came from, but perhaps somebody can tell me about why the planning board attorney would get involved in it, or anybody from the town, because it's merely for water service, electric service, and cable TV service for lot 1. It doesn't have anything to do with water mains, storm drains, or anything that the town might ever be involved with. For example, most lots that are connected to public water, the water main's out in the street, and then there's a water service line that goes to the property line and then becomes part of the property, and that's all we're talking about. The declaration itself was required by the health department, and I have to file that declaration simultaneously with the map, the subdivision plat to be filed, and I have to provide the county copies of that filed declaration. And also, I guess I could send a copy to the town based on the very last thing in the resolution. But I really don't think that there's any jurisdiction for the planning board attorney to even get involved in this. It's a private thing.
Victoria, do you want to respond real quickly?
Sure. So we generally always approve the easements where a lot needs it in order to have access to a utility. So in this case, the planning board is approving a lot and wants to make sure that the lot can be used for a residential purpose, even if it might not be. And so that utility easement is necessary for that purpose, to make sure that the lot can be serviced. So we're not.
It's already, they already exist. And it already is serviced.
This is not unique to your property. We review these on all subdivisions, and all we're looking at is the form. You're sophisticated, but a lot of times people, don't use the right declaration form, or they don't use the right language, and we need to make sure that there's actually going to be an easement. We're not interested in how much you're charging one lot.
No, we're not charging any. I'm not charging anything, and it's a declaration that I could have done before we actually got the final plat.
You could have, and then I would have reviewed it before issuing this approval.
Well, I'm not, I don't think that, I don't think that that's right and reasonable because it has nothing to do with the town of Hyde Park.
Well, the lot needs the easement to have access to the utilities.
Yeah, and it's being provided, but the town of Hyde Park's not involved in it. It's not your water main. It's not your electric cable. It's not anything to do with the town. It doesn't even come off a town highway.
Your argument is noted.
Thank you. The next thing is number 3, that's okay. Number 4, I have a problem with the language in it. It seems to me that every time somebody digs a hole on Lot 1, they got to go to the Office of Parks, Recreation, and Historic Preservation. Anytime any disturbance occurs on the lot. That's basically what it says there, prior to any disturbance. Not the first disturbance, or the second one, or the 5th one, or one that's more than this, or one more than that. It's any disturbance. And I don't think that that's right. I think that's an undue burden on the lot. Oh, by the way, there's so many other regulations in the town that when you want to do a disturbance on a piece of property, you have to get a sediment erosion control permit at minimum. And when you apply for that, the zoning administrator, who happens to be the administrator for the erosion and sediment control permits, will ask for, well, what did Chris have to say? So it's kind of a redundant thing. I just don't see it for any disturbance. If you want to change the language in it, that's fine with me, but the way it is right now, I can't accept that.
So
finally, number 5, this bulk regulation summary table, I don't know where this came from. I think it's from an old sketch plan review comment of the town planning consultant. There are no proposed structures, principal or anything on this lot, and it says so in the right in the table that's on the subdivision map. And I don't know where the 14 feet came from. The minimum setback in this zone for the rear lot is 10 feet, and so I don't think it should be anything greater.
Liz, that's your condition. Can you speak to that?
This is a lingering it's just a remaining comment. We had March 2, 2020 comment. It asked for a rear setback to be identified. And I think it was in prior comments.
Yeah, that was when we still had a structure shown as a possible 3-bedroom dwelling. But of course, since that time, we removed that structure, and we removed all the structures that were possible. And so there really isn't any 14 feet. It's just a 10-foot setback. And the building setback lines are shown on the final plat.
Well, if the board doesn't have a problem with it, I don't have a problem letting that go. You know, when you come for building permit, you'd have to comply with.
Oh, absolutely. Oh, I know that full well. Thank you.
So, Victoria?
I do think the concern about item 4, where it says prior to any disturbance on lot 1A, is valid. And it would be good to either work with the zoning administrator or the engineer to come up with some threshold. So maybe disturbance of a 1/4 acre or more, something quantifiable besides, you know, him doing a test pit. So what we could do.
What's the goal?
The goal is to make sure that you do SHPO review before any significant disturbance.
Well, that's going to have to happen anyway, because that's part of the whole process of getting a building permit.
No, building permits are non-discretionary, and he doesn't require, you generally don't have to go to SHPO before pulling a building permit.
No.
So that's why we put this in here as a catch-all, so that.
But when I go get a building permit, there will be no building permit until I have an erosion and sediment control permit.
Correct.
And that is also a ministerial permit.
The
So there
board
is no discretion. I don't send it anywhere.
There may be.
You don't ask. You don't ask for what about SHPO? Or
No.
what about a Chris review?
No, it's ministerial only.
And I think this originated from the fact that all through this proposal, the discussion was that no structure or disturbance is proposed, but that the board was mindful of the fact of resources in and around the area. So this was a way of handling it to address the fact that there was the insistence that nothing is proposed on this lot, but ultimately it could be. So in order for the board to do a full seeker review, they had to somehow provide for the potential for those kinds of resources to be present and to be verified that they aren't there or that they are being mitigated when there is disturbance.
The SHPO response also indicated that they thought there was no impact because there was nothing proposed structurally at the time. It's just a non-realty subdivision.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
So Victoria, I'm sorry, I cut you off.
No, that's okay. So I was just saying that we can quantify that and tighten that condition up. And so, if Mr. Andros is in no rush, we can take 2 weeks, speak with Pete and Tad, and try and craft a tighter condition there, and we can come back and amend the resolution, or you could withdraw the approval tonight and re-adopt it in 2 weeks. I think it's better to let it lie and we can amend it in 2 weeks.
Not take
I
a
don't have a
vote.
problem with 2 weeks. You can't go anywhere anyway because you can't file them out.
So we'll just not take a vote. The motion's been made and seconded, and then we'll make a motion to amend this resolution at a later date.
I believe it was voted on.
Already voted, yeah.
Oh, am I saying it's already been passed? That's right.
Yeah.
So
We'll
should
do a
let it-
site plan amendment, right?
Yeah, so I mean, per the
Conditional.
applicant's request, we'll take it up again in 2 weeks and we'll amend those conditions.
Okay.
But
Just as a I don't know, as a comment, if you're going to do that, maybe sometime before the evening of the meeting, you might share what you come up with so that I can take a look at it.
Be happy to.
Thanks.
Most of our resolutions actually arrived today, late last night, I should say, and they had to be reviewed by Liz, Pete, Tad, myself. So apologize.
No, that's
Yours, I thought
okay.
was pretty simple. We still have a resolution that was undergoing changes as late as 5:15 tonight.
well,
Yes.
Mr. Andros, if you want to send me your declaration for the utility easement now, I can approve it so that it's not a condition of the approval.
Okay. Yeah, I think John Marvin will probably send it to you. He's the one who drew it up.
And
Okay.
Pete, if you have any suggestions about how to improve any disturbance, something that's quantifiable,
I don't know.
feel free to send it in, as I was going to say.
Maybe before any building permit is issued. I don't know. Before any permit required by the town is issued.
Well, here's playing my always thinking of the worst, not you, but someone else buys your lot. They want to avoid that requirement. They dig, which doesn't require a permit, and then they come in, and then there's nothing left to review. So,
Well, that happens. That happens all the time in this town.
No comment, but yes. No comment, but yes.
What can I tell you?
So
Yeah.
we'll schedule this to go on for the July 15th meeting. In the meantime, I'll make sure we do this quickly, Pete.
Like I say, I can't file a map anyway.
But the earlier we get it through and to you, the better.
Okay.
So, thanks for your comments.
All
We'll
right.
see you in 2 weeks.
Thank you.
Stay safe.
bye.
Bye.
The next item is Enclave Solar Farm. This is an extension of the deadline in which to start and complete construction. They're close, by the way, to being able to do so. Did not ask Mr. Casamento, who represents the applicant, to come in tonight because it's fairly straightforward. And we also received no written comments nor public comments after our last meeting or during our last public hearing. So I believe this motion will be introduced by Mr. Pickett.
Yes, resolution to grant one-year extension of all deadlines pursuant to section 108-9.6B of the town code. Enclave Solar, resolution 2018-30D. Whereas. Now therefore be it resolved that the planning board hereby grants a 12-month extension pursuant to section 108-9.6B of the code of the time in which applicant must commence substantial construction of the project as shown on the site plan to and including June 11th, 2021, and the time in which to complete construction of the project as shown on the site plan to and including June 11th, 2022.
Second.
Do you want me to read the second part or not? It's
not highlighted, but go ahead.
there will be no written or verbal notification from the planning board office to the applicant at such time as the extension expires. Any request for an extension of the deadline set forth herein must be submitted to the planning board at least 30 days in advance of set dates.
So this has been moved and seconded. Thank you, Ann. I just want to point out to anybody who might be watching that although this is standard in our resolutions, I'd just like to say compliment our secretary, Ms. Whitman, because she actually does keep track of when things are going to expire and does alert all our applicants just in case they know that it's a courtesy that we do. We're not required to under our code, which is why this is put into the resolutions, but we do it to try to be helpful. That noted. All those in favor, please raise your hand and signify by saying aye.
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 Great. Motion carries unanimously. The next item on the agenda is Jeffrey Groves Estates re-subdivision. This is simply for the re-subdivision. We had a request by Mr. Kaufman, who's here. Let's see if he can connect. Mr. Kaufman, can you hear me? Mr. Kaufman, can you hear me? So we have the same problem as before. We can hear Mr. Kaufman, but he cannot hear us.
Oh, his audio is joining. He needs to unmute his phone. There you are. And now you have to turn off YouTube.
Hello?
We can hear you, Lou.
Okay, great.
Okay, so this was, I was busy with another project today. And I saw, when I got back, I went through what looked to be 100,000 emails back and forth. We finally have a resolution. Mr. Kaufman, did you have a chance to review the final version?
Go ahead.
I don't think he's seen the final because we were working on it until very last minute. So perhaps we can put it up. Or I could email it now.
Are there any areas you want to highlight, Victoria?
Yes. So if we scroll down to condition, it's condition, keep going down. It's 21 that we're looking
21.
at. So, Lou, you had asked the board to delete the requirement of approving the easements, of having DCWWA approve them. And what we did here is that we clarified that DCWW is only approving the form of the easement, so we're not expecting them to accept them, and they don't need to be conveyed, because we know that doesn't happen until the end of the project. We just want them in final form. And then there's also been a request that those easements be shown on the subdivision plat if they're not within the road.
Right. So that being the only change, that's fine with us. We're, intending to put the entire water system within the right of way. And in fact, Mr. Camados, who's the attorney for the DCWWA, is providing me with the form of easement that he finds acceptable, which I can forward on to you, Victoria. But that, we won't be adding anything to the plat because nothing will be out of the right of way.
Okay, so it's just going to be a matter of you filling out his form and, completing it for this project.
That's right.
And I saw
The only reason I had suggested, it wasn't that deleted per se, rather, but the way the MOU describes it, before they accept the system, they needed easements in place. So I felt that at this juncture, it might be a little premature, and that if you could see your way clear to just leave the easements until, prior to issuance of the CO. But I don't really have any objection to the language as you've included it, Victoria.
That's good, thank you.
I believe that's it, Victoria.
There were some other changes, but Mr. Kaufman had reviewed them earlier.
Right. That was the final change that you made, that there was still a bit under contention. Great. So I'm going to introduce this resolution because I'm the fastest speaker. Ha ha ha. A resolution to the conditions of subdivision approval. Jeffrey Greggs Estates, July 1st, 2020, Resolution 2018-04K. Whereas, now therefore be resolved, the planning board hereby deletes conditions 4, 16, and 17 of the subdivision resolution and adds a new condition that must be satisfied prior to commencement of construction of the wastewater treatment plant. So the conditions of the conditional subdivision approval are as follows. 1, payment of all fees, including the recreation fee for 3 new lots and escrow for the town's consultants. 2, Department of Health approval for methods of water supply and sewage disposal. 3, Dutchess County Department of Public Works conceptual approval of the curb cut for Daniels Way. 4, deleted. 5, posting of a performance guarantee or other surety for completion of Daniels Way in an amount approved by the planning board and town engineer and informed substance and manner of execution acceptable to the town board and attorney to the town. 6, confirmation that the Sewer Works Corporation is still in full force and effect and in good standing and holds clear title to the existing and proposed sewer lot. 7, approval by the planning board attorney and attorney to the town as to the form of an entity to own the common area, such as a homeowners association or condominium association, parentheses, the HOA, close parentheses, which shall be responsible for maintenance of the roadways, sidewalks, drainage easements, light pole maintenance, retaining wall for the roads and drainage, and guest parking spaces of the subdivision. 8, approval by the attorney of the town of an officer of session and deed with related recording documents for the proposed town roads and drainage easements, with proof by a title company certified to do business in the state of New York that the owner has clear unencumbered title to all land subject to the offer of session. 9, approval by the planning board attorney to the town of a deed restriction over the open space area, limiting its uses pursuant to section 96-9E3 of the subdivision law, providing the town with the right but not the obligation to enforce the deed restriction. 10, approval by the planning board attorney to the town of an easement to the Sewer Works Corporation for main roadway. 11, approval by the planning board attorney to the town of a blanket cross access easement for grading across to residential lots. 12, approval by the planning board attorney of the stormwater management easements, upon maintenance easements, parking easements, and utility easements, and revision of the plat to include meets and bounds descriptions of each easement area. 13, approval by the Dutchess County Water and Wastewater Authority of the water distribution infrastructure and water connection plans and specifications for the wastewater system. 14, revision of the owner applicant's signature on the cover sheet to remove the reference to site plan approval. 15, approval by the planning board engineer of all meets and bounds descriptions for all legal documents. 16, deleted. 17, deleted. 18, deleted. 19, approval by the town board of updated memorandum of understanding with the applicant, Dutchess County Water and Wastewater Authority regarding the wastewater service. 20, deleted. 21, approval by the DCWWA of the form of the water line easements for the project, including meets and bounds descriptions. DCWWA easements that are not proposed within the road right-of-way shall be shown in the subdivision plat. Be it further resolved that prior to the zoning administrator authorizing issuance of a building permit on any lot on the conditionally approved subdivision plat, the following conditions must be satisfied. 1, evidence that all deeds, easements, restrictive covenants, and offers of session have been duly recorded with the Dutchess County Clerk. 2, completion of Daniels Way through binder course to satisfaction of the town engineer. Be it further resolved that as a condition of the town accepting dedication of the road shown in the subdivision plat, the applicant shall provide the town at its own cost the title insurance policy and a 1-year maintenance guarantee in form and amount acceptable to the town board. Be it further resolved that the following must be satisfied as a condition of the town accepting dedication of the roads shown in the final subdivision plat. A, formation of a sidewalk maintenance district for sidewalks on Daniels Way and Blair Road, or B, evidence that the town denied a valid petition for formation of a sidewalk district and the site plan includes a note requiring the applicant or an HOA to maintain the sidewalks, or C, evidence of adoption of a sidewalk maintenance law by the town of Hyde Park which requires the adjacent property owners to maintain the sidewalk, and D, formation of a drainage district to maintain the required stormwater practices for Daniels Way and Blair Road, or evidence the town denied a valid petition for the formation of a drainage district. If the drainage district is not formed, approval by the planning board attorney of a stormwater maintenance agreement. Be it further resolved that prior to the commencement of construction of the wastewater facilities, i.e. the treatment plant and the collection system, the The applicant shall post a performance guarantee or the surety for completion of the wastewater facilities with the Dutchess County Water Wastewater Authority. Inform substance and manner of execution acceptable to the DCWWA in accordance with the memorandum of understanding dated April 30th, 2020. For the resolve that prior to the commencement of operation of the wastewater treatment plant and the zoning administrator authorizing issuance of a CO for any residential structure on any lot shown in the conditionally approved subdivision plat, the following conditions must be satisfied. 1. Posting the maintenance guarantee or the surety for maintenance of the sewage treatment plant with the DCWWA as the beneficiary obligee in an amount approved by the DCWWA and inform substance and manner execution acceptable to the Dutchess County Water and Wastewater Authority. 2. Acceptance of the HOA by the Attorney General.
Wow, you're right. You do read fast.
Any further discussion? All in favor, raise your hand, indicate so by raising your hand and saying aye.
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 Motion carries unanimously. Thank you, Mr. Kaufman. I believe this should get
Well,
you.
I do have,
Yes.
if I might ask a question or I have, in Tad's list that she had provided me, I would, and I'll go over them with her again, maybe tomorrow or next day. I think that most, if not all of these conditions are now satisfied, but I will confirm that with Tad. And that being the case, she will then, assuming that she's satisfied and Victoria is as well, then the next process is for me to submit the final set of drawings for signature. Is that right?
Once we get the sign off from Tad and Pete, then they authorize me to sign, but I have to have something to sign.
Right. So we'll take care of that. And I did have another question, but you read everything so fast that my brain's a little. So I have to slow it down before I can think of the next question. So no worries. Okay. So I think we're good. We're good.
Lou, it's been a long journey, I know. And now we move on to the site plan. That's the next step, but congratulations.
Well, you say that, but I mean, okay, thank you. We'll, we're getting there. We really want to start, and I know you guys will be very pleased with the end product. So we just need to get through this paperwork, and then we'll get it done.
If you recall, because I do, the entire board commented how nice the buildings look architecturally. Even your sewage treatment plant is the nicest looking sewage treatment plant I've ever seen. So we're looking forward to seeing this developed.
Lou, let Michael know that Jerry Kamanos just sent us the.
Oh, yeah, okay. I just got something from Jerry Kamanos, but I'll send that over to Victoria tomorrow, so she can take a look at the form of easement for the water system.
Victoria, do you want to see his form, or do you want to see it filled out by them?
Right. I mean, it needs to be filled out. But what I
I
really
thought you were just
need is something
you were
from.
just approving. I thought you were just going to approve the form at this point. You wanted actually.
Lou, the condition, I don't need to approve anything. I need Jerry Kamados to give us a letter saying that he approves the form. So if he just gives a letter saying, read 21 closely, and then get a letter from Gerald.
All right.
Okay. I don't need to see it.
Right.
Very good.
Thank you, and we'll see you prior to my signing at some point.
Yes, you will.
Okay. Thank you very much. Have a nice night. Stay safe.
Lou's on the next item of the agenda.
This is true. I'm sorry.
Just
You're not getting rid of me that fast.
So Mr. Kaufman and his partners purchased what we used to call Crofton Mews. It's had several names. Now it's Carriage Trails at the point. But we have been routinely extending the time in which the applicants have to complete construction. They've already started it. If we recall, actually, I think only Ann and I are left from when this was signed, Ann.
Yep.
This was approved with a zillion conditions. They finally met them. We signed. They started construction, and then various things happened into the economy. So Mr. Kaufman has indicated that they would like to go forward with the project, but in the meantime, what we have to do is set a public hearing in order to review. We are required to have a public hearing to review extensions and which time to complete. So I somehow on my sheet seem to have forgotten who to assign this to make a motion. Ann, would you like to introduce this as a motion?
You're on mute, Ann.
Whichever Ann.
Yeah, it's actually Ann Weiser's supposed to, but she's on mute. But
Okay.
I will make the motion to
Okay,
set August
I'm
5th.
on now. Go, go ahead.
I'll make the motion for setting a public hearing for August 5th to review an extension request.
And I'll second that.
Thank you. All in favor signify by raising your hand and saying aye.
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 Aye. Aye. Thank you. So, Lou, this is set up for August 5th. In the meantime, if there are any back and forth issues we have on this one, let's resolve them. We're going to be having a meeting to discuss this tomorrow, and we'll get back to you.
Thank you.
Okay. Have a nice night.
Thank you.
We're nearing the end. The next item on the agenda is a site plan waiver request by Carney and Tatiana Reinbold. The home is located at 6 Main Street, directly across Main Street from Town Hall. They're going to be they're enclosing their porch, and there we go. They're doing it into historic style. Ms. Moss has made the recommendation. These are custom-made windows. They will be wood, etc., and there'll be a porch entry before the front door. Anybody have any questions? Comments? Mr. Oliver, this is your resolution.
Yep. Town of Hyde Park Planning Board, Carney and Tatiana Reinbold, Town Code Section 108-9.4C2, Resolution Number 2020-10, whereas a request for site plan waiver has been made to the Town of Hyde Park Planning Board by Carney and Tatiana Reinbold for a closed-in front porch on a single-family home requiring a building permit, and whereas, therefore it be resolved, that the Town of Hyde Park Planning Board hereby waives the site plan requirements for the proposed changes as described in the building permit received by the Building Department June 5th, 2020, including supplemental information presented to the Planning Board and per the request of the Planning Board dated June 16th, 2020.
Second, Ann Dexter.
Thank you. Any discussion? All in favor, please signify by raising your hand and saying aye.
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 Aye. Thank you. Motion carries unanimously. The next item on the agenda is to authorize me to send a comment letter regarding proposed local law B of 2020. As a reminder, this amends the definition of recreation to include both outdoor and indoor recreation. I apologize for sending the letter out fairly late today too. I kind of forgot I'd started it and didn't finish. But if everybody, I heard from a couple of planning board members who said it was okay. I want to thank Stephanie for finding the typos. I caught one, but I hadn't caught both, which is important. And if you'll look, they refer in the letter to, I kept thinking something was bothering me, and they refer to districts that I don't think have been created yet.
Right, right.
So I'm not sure how they can adjust that language, but I think they need to before they adopt it, because you can't really refer to districts that don't exist quite yet. Anybody have any other comments or additions?
I just wanted to say that, so I read the other comments that you had forwarded, and it's interesting to get the, different viewpoints, but I did feel that making the point that allowing indoor recreation does support the comprehensive plan by being less, being more pedestrian friendly, because you might be able to walk down to the corner and do something and not have to drive across town to get to the commercial districts. So, and I think there's a lot of indoor recreation that probably hasn't even been invented yet.
You're right.
I'm a Star Trek fan. I'm thinking holodecks.
If it can be the holodeck that was in Voyager, I'll be really happy. Any other comments? Yes, so what Ann's referring to is, if you recall, I referred out Mr. Sweet's comments that had copied me on. And that's one of the reasons why I went back and looked at the comprehensive plan too, to say what other elements it might be actually satisfying. And we are in a push to try to make this a more pedestrian friendly community and less reliance on automobiles. And I think that by locating uses that would appeal to people to be able to walk to might be a good thing. So thank you, Ann, for picking up on that. So I believe that the motion to authorize me to send is being introduced by...
By me. I didn't know if there was any more. Oh, look, I love that.
Sorry.
I would like to make a motion that authorizes the chairman to send a comment letter to the town board regarding local law B.
And I second that motion.
Further discussion? All in favor signify by raising your hand and saying aye. Aye. Out loud, thank you. And there being no other business, may I get a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Second, Ann Dexter.
Thank you. All in favor signify by raising your hand and saying aye.
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 Thank you, Councilman Krupnick, and thank you, Town Board, for providing the resources to provide this virtual meeting. Thanks for everyone who tuned in, and thanks all colleagues and consultants. Have a good night.
You too. Thank you, Neil.